Welcome to the 11th annual reception of the Notre Dame Lawyers of New York City, an event we're calling Off the Court with Muffet McGraw, who for 33 years was the women's basketball coach at Notre Dame, winning 2 national championships. And let's give it up. And with her is Coquese Washington, who played for Coach McGraw, then attended Notre Dame Law School, graduated in 1997, who played professional basketball with the American Basketball League and then in the WNBA, and who in 2022 was named the head coach of women's basketball team at Rutgers University. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jim Carr. I'm a 1987 graduate of Notre Dame Law School. Thank you. Let's hold our applause till the end. I'm a partner at the law firm of Kelly, Dry & Warren. I'm founder and president of Notre Dame Lawyers of New York City, which is comprised of lawyers who work in the New York City metropolitan area, who are graduates of University of Notre Dame, graduates of St. Mary's College, obviously graduates of Notre Dame Law School, and current students of Notre Dame Law School. This organization was created for 3 primary purposes. 1, to promote networking among Notre Dame lawyers. 2, to offer placement assistance to Notre Dame law students who want to work in the New York City metropolitan area. And 3, to assist Notre Dame Law School in recruiting the best and brightest students from the New York City metropolitan area. So let's go through them. 1, networking. This event is a great example of one of our networking events. We have about 170 guests who registered this evening. We have about 30 current students and 5 incoming law students with us here in attendance. Now, I'm not going to identify these incoming students. I learned my lesson last year when I embarrassed them by introducing them, but I asked Stephanie, Grant, Nicole, Fema, and Mary to look around. Look around this room. This is what the Notre Dame Network is about. You've all made the right decision to attend Notre Dame Law School. Second, placement assistance. With us tonight is Patty McLaughlin. Each of you will be hearing from Patty soon to register your law firms for off-campus interviews, which will be held at Kelly, Dry & Warren on July 24th and July 25th. The New York City market area is the second, although Dean tells me it may be soon the first. Is that right? The first market for Notre Dame law students looking for jobs. For this summer, there are 40 current students, a combination of 2Ls, a rising 3Ls and rising 2Ls, who are working in the New York City metropolitan area. When I came back to New York City, I was one of 9. In 2022, we had about 50 students participate in off-campus interviews. There were about 130 interviews during the 2-day program. There's no reason why we can't beat those numbers this year, but we need your help. Please register your law firms with Patty. Patty, where are you? You're out there somewhere. Everyone knows Patty McLaughlin, right? There you go. Hey, Patty. Your support is needed to help law students find the jobs in this market. 3, third purpose, recruiting the best and brightest students in Notre Dame Law School. That's what Dean loves to hear, right? The best and the brightest. In order to do so, law school needs money to compete with other top-tier law firms, to fund various critical programs, and to offer scholarships to those students who can't afford to attend Notre Dame Law School. As many of you know, because you've heard my story over the last 11 years, I understand that pain personally. As the first person in my immediate family to have a high school degree, my parents couldn't afford to send me to college, let alone law school. Not only did I owe a significant amount of money after I graduated from college, I couldn't borrow enough money to attend Notre Dame Law School. Due to the generosity of a benefactor, a person I never met and I wish I did, I was able to attend Notre Dame Law School, and I think about that often. In 2016, as you know, or many of you know, my wife and I decided to fund a fellowship to provide financial support for incoming students from Region 10, that's this region, who demonstrate financial need. This is our way of providing the same opportunity that was provided to me, and we should all take a moment to think about what Notre Dame Law School has given to us in our professional lives. I think it's our obligation to continue to support the next generation of Notre Dame lawyers, to support students like Jillian Jin, a first-generation student who you will hear from tonight. You can support in many different forms. For example, you can join the Order of the St. Thomas More, There are different levels of giving, starting at $500 for recent graduates, culminating with the Dean's Leadership Circle for a donation of $25,000 or more. The benefits of Notre Dame Law School are clear. The order provides funding for graduates to pursue public interest work through the Build to Practice program. Every summer, Notre Dame law students who want to work in the public sector can do so because they receive stipends for jobs that do not pay summer associates. Finally, millions of dollars have been dispersed to graduates pursuing careers in public interest through the Loan Repayment Assistance Program. These programs are necessary to keep Notre Dame as a top-tier law school. These programs are necessary to allow Notre Dame to attract quality students who can one day say upon graduation, "We are Notre Dame lawyers." I'd like to thank those of you who are already members of the Order of St. Thomas More. If not, please consider becoming a member. For more information about the Order of St. Thomas More, please see Anna McKeever, who is here with us tonight. Anna, straight ahead. So, I am honored to introduce to you the 11th Dean of Notre Dame Law School, Marcus Cole. From a young age, Marcus knew he was destined one day to end up at Notre Dame. But before he ended up at Notre Dame in 2019, he did a couple of things. He earned his bachelor's degree from Cornell University. Thank you for laughing at that joke. Juris Doctorate from Northwestern Law School. Upon graduating from Northwestern, Marcus clerked for Judge Arnold of the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. Then he practiced law in Chicago in the Chicago office of Mayor Brown. In 1997, Marcus joined the faculty at Stanford Law School. For the next 22 years of his career at Stanford, Marcus developed an impressive resume. He received numerous appointments from prestigious international academic institutions around the world, and he is acknowledged leading scholar of the law and economics of commerce and finance. And Marcus, as a practicing bankruptcy attorney, I'm most impressed with your recent accolade, and that is you inducted this spring into the American College of Bankruptcy. Congratulations. Can you put a good word in for me? I really with the nominating committee. By the way, and for those of you who are not aware, Marcus would call me from time to time and ask me bankruptcy advice. He'd want to know, Jim, what are the requirements for confirmation of a plan? But that'll stay between us and everyone in this room. But from the moment I first met Marcus in September 2019, Marcus has demonstrated a tremendous commitment to educating a different kind of lawyer and ensuring that Notre Dame remains one of the premier law schools in the country while maintaining its Catholic tradition. In less than 4 years at Notre Dame Law School, his list of accomplishments include establishing the Religious Liberty Initiative and the Religious Liberty Clinic to defend freedom of religion for all people of all faiths around the world. He's responsible for opening the Exoneration Justice Clinic to free innocent inmates who are victims of wrongful convictions. He's responsible for expanding the law school's international programs through the Global Lawyering Initiative to enhance international learning and research opportunities for both students and for faculty. In fact, my mentee at Notre Dame Law School right now is in Ireland with an Irish law firm for the summer due to this program. Marcus has also overseen enrollment of the most diverse classes ever seen in Notre Dame Law School during his tenure. In 2021, 33% of the students who enrolled were people of color. In 2022, 36%. Marcus is deeply committed to promoting diversity and inclusion at Notre Dame Law School. And for those of you who are not aware, the university's leadership recently reappointed Dean Cole, Marcus, to serve a second 5-year term, which will begin on July 1, 2024. So with that, please join me in welcoming the person who is known on the Notre Dame campus as the Marcus, not the other Marcus, the Joseph A. Mattson Dean of Professor of Law, Dean Marcus Cole.
Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Jim, for that really generous introduction. And I was listening to that, and I thought, I think I'm underpaid. but I'm so grateful to be here. I am the happiest man in the world. If you've heard my story before, you understand why I'm so happy. I get to do events like this, and I get to be at Notre Dame and around Notre Dame people. For those of you who haven't heard my story before, you know, I grew up as a Catholic kid in the Terrace Village housing projects of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was the second oldest of 5 kids, and my mother told us that we had 2 jobs, me and my older brother, Michael. We had to sell newspapers to help the family make ends meet, and my mother told us that our other job was to serve as altar boys at our church, St. Agnes Church, which is down the hill from the Hill District. So we did that every day of our childhood. We got up every morning, sold newspapers 7 days a week, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and then on Sundays we would sell papers and then go to St. Agnes and serve as altar boys at Mass at St. Agnes. But on fall Sunday mornings, that was special. We would run out before it was light outside to go get those newspapers to sell, and then we would run after selling our newspapers to St. Agnes so that we could be the first 2 altar boys at St. Agnes for that first Mass on Sunday mornings. Because if we were able to get there first, we could then run home to watch the rebroadcast of the Notre Dame football games that were played the day before with Lindsey Nelson as the play-by-play announcer. And we lived for those football games, and Notre Dame was our team. And when we were little boys, my older brother and I made a pact that when we grew up, there was only one college for us, and that was Notre Dame. But those of you who know the story also know that I have the world's worst older brother, that he was perfect at everything. He was #1 in his class. He was student body president, so he was smart and popular, and he was an athlete. And he only applied to one college. He applied to Notre Dame, and he got in. And when I applied to Notre Dame, I didn't get in, and I was devastated. So I had to go to my fallback school, Cornell University. And I'm really glad I did, because that's where I met my wife, Angie, of 35 years. So I'm one of the few people who can say that getting rejected from Notre Dame was the best thing that ever happened to me. But I didn't give up on Notre Dame. I applied for law school, and I finally got in. But Northwestern gave me a scholarship, and I didn't get any scholarship at Notre Dame. So as a poor kid from the projects in Pittsburgh, I really had no choice. I had to go to Northwestern for law school. But that's why financial aid is so important to me, because I know that I wanted to be at Notre Dame, and I don't want anybody else to ever have to make the choice that I had to make. So hopefully you'll consider giving a gift to the Order of St. Thomas More. I never lost my love for Notre Dame. Angie will tell you I dragged her from Chicago to South Bend for football games, our entire courtship and then marriage. And then when I went out to Stanford to be a professor for 22 years, my colleagues at Stanford were convinced that I was a Notre Dame undergraduate, because that's who I rooted for when Notre Dame came to play Stanford. So when I got the call from Father John about this job, Angie and I didn't even talk about it. She knew that the decision was already made on high. But we knew that Stanford was going to announce that I was going to be the dean of Notre Dame. And so we thought, since our kids, all of their friends lived on the Stanford campus and they grew up on that Stanford campus, we knew that we should announce it to them before they found out in the paper. So we sat them down in our living room, and we thought, you know, they're teenagers, they're going to think, well, how does this affect me? But that's not what happened. We sat them down in our living room, and we told them that I was going to be the next dean at Notre Dame Law School. And my oldest son, Claude, said, first words out of his mouth were, "Dad, isn't it amazing that God has finally given you the thing you've wanted all your life?" And it's true. It's true. I'm living a dream. I get to be here. I get to be here with Coach McGraw, with Coach Washington. I have the best job in the world, and I get to be at Notre Dame all the time. So I'm so grateful for you all being here. I do want to introduce Jillian Jin. Jillian is a rising third-year student. She also played basketball as an undergraduate at Lewis and Clark. And I'd like to have her tell you a little bit about her Notre Dame experience before we introduce the coaches. Jillian, are you here? Oh, come on.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, thank you, everyone, especially Dean Cole, Coach McGraw, and Coach Washington, for joining Notre Dame Law School in this special event. As Dean Cole mentioned, my name is Jillian Jin, and I am an incoming 3L at Notre Dame Law School. A brief background on me: I was born and raised in Renton, Washington, which is a small suburb outside Seattle. I had a pretty normal upbringing, besides the fact that I grew up with 4 older brothers who were very competitive with one another. And I know this is hard to imagine, given that I'm about 5'2" on a good day, but my most favorite childhood memory was playing basketball with them in our small backyard. My parents, on the other hand, spent majority of their time working to support us. Neither of them were afforded the opportunity to attend college, but they both instilled the importance of education within me growing up. Thus, as a first-generation student, second-generation immigrant, and a multiracial woman, attending Lewis and Clark College was a monumental moment for both me and my parents. Yet what made this accomplishment even more special, especially for my dad, who attended every single one of my basketball games, both AAU and high school, was that I was recruited to play for the women's basketball team. Ultimately, when people ask me why I attended Notre Dame, the answer is very simple. It reminded me of the close-knit community I was a part of in college as a student athlete. At Lewis and Clark, I was surrounded by teammates and coaches who believed in me, who pushed me to be the best leader I could be, and most importantly, supported me when my dad passed right before graduation. At Notre Dame, it is no different. The professors truly want you to succeed, classmates want to collaborate and support one another, and alumni from all over the country, like several of you, want to mentor Notre Dame students. Before I decided to attend Notre Dame Law School, my dream was to practice in New York City. At first, it was very hard to picture that someone like me, with my background, and from all the way across the country, would be able to do that. However, the community at Notre Dame, especially the alumni network, opened up so many doors for me. And it was actually a Notre Dame Law alum that helped me land my current job, which I have found in the last couple of weeks to be the perfect fit for me. Now, as I approach my final year of law school, I find myself reflecting on my roots and my own personal journey here. In these very fast 2 years, I have been able to make lifelong friends, challenge myself academically, explore how I can use my degree for the betterment of others, and most recently, serve as president of the Asian Pacific American Law Students Association. It is clear that Notre Dame completely changed the trajectory of my life, but attending would not have been possible without the generous financial aid that I received from the Order of St. Thomas More. It is because of your donations that students like me, who come from different walks of life, can have the opportunity to break barriers and blaze their own path. So in closing, thank you everyone, my fellow students, professors, alumni, and other colleagues, for all that you do every day to make Notre Dame such a special place.
Thank you, Jillian. And that's an example of the different kind of lawyer that we're trying to produce at Notre Dame. Some of the things that Jim Carr didn't mention are that we're bringing in students like Jillian who have the highest credentials that Notre Dame Law School has ever seen in admissions. This past year, we've broken a record with the highest median LSAT score, and we broke another record with the highest undergraduate median GPA that we've ever had in Notre Dame history, and it just keeps getting better. But in order for it to get better, we have to have the resources to be able to attract students like Jillian to make that education possible. And then the one accomplishment at Notre Dame that I am proudest of is that this year we restructured our loan repayment assistance program so that any student who graduates and wants to go into public interest law can go into public interest law as a career without ever having to pay a single payment on their student loans. We're one of the only law schools in the country that's able to do this, and we do it because of our commitment to the Catholic mission and the students who are committed to making the world a better place for themselves and for their communities. And with that, I want to now introduce our special guests tonight. First, I want to start by introducing Coach Muffet McGraw. For 33 seasons, which included 2 national championships, Coach Muffet McGraw patrolled the sidelines as the Karen and Kevin Keys family Notre Dame women's basketball head coach. Coach McGraw hoisted the national championship trophy in both 2001 and 2018, becoming only the 6th different women's basketball head coach to win multiple NCAA titles. Coach McGraw was the 13th female coach inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, and her legendary career included an impressive 936 career wins, which ranks 6th all-time among Division I coaches. And that includes 848 wins at Notre Dame. And during the 2018 and 2019 season, Coach McGraw became the 4th fastest coach to reach the 900-win milestone. Coach McGraw led the Irish to 7 NCAA title game appearances from 2001 through 2019, including 6 in her last decade of coaching. Her 9 Final Four appearances rank as 5th most all-time. A 4-time National Coach of the Year winner and 7-time Conference Coach of the Year, Coach McGraw won 25 total combined conference regular season and tournament championships. And in addition, she's collected 174 wins against ranked opponents, with 66 coming against top 10 teams. Coach McGraw is one of just 5 coaches in NCAA Division I history with over 930 wins, 9 Final Fours, multiple NCAA championships, and the others are Coaches Summit, Coach Ariema, Coach Vanderveer, and Duke men's coach, Mike Krzyzewski. She remains active in the South Bend community, whether it's organizing blood drives throughout the area or teaching her sports leadership class at Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. And in addition, she's recently joined the ACC network as a basketball analyst. She's a native of Westchester, Pennsylvania, and she earned her bachelor's degree in sociology from St. Joseph's University of Pennsylvania. Coach McGraw and her husband Matt will celebrate their 44th wedding anniversary, 46th wedding anniversary this year. You guys have us beat. And they're the proud parents to their son Murphy, who is a 2012 Indiana University graduate who married Francesca Gardner in Paris, which is her hometown, in the spring of 2018. I also want to introduce Coach Coquese Washington. Coach Washington was named the 3rd full-time head coach in the history of Rutgers women's basketball on May 23rd, 2022. During her first year at the helm of the Scarlet Knights, Coach Washington guided the program to reach its 1,000th win and also picked up her 100th Big Ten win. Coach Washington was a 3-time Big Ten Coach of the Year during her 12-year tenure at Penn State, where she became the first female African-American head coach in the school's history and went on to lead the Lady Lions to 3 Big Ten titles and 4 NCAA tournaments, including Sweet 16 appearances in 2012 and 2014. While at Penn State, Coach Washington earned WBCA Regional Coach of the Year twice and was named finalist for WBCA National Coach of the Year 2 times. She was also selected as the 2011-2014 Black Coaches Association Female Coach of the Year. Coach Washington recently served as associate head coach at her alma mater, Notre Dame, for 2 seasons. And during those 2 seasons at Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish returned to the national scene with an appearance in the NCAA Sweet 16 in 2022. The Sweet 16 run marked Coach Washington's 10th season on the sidelines at Notre Dame, following an 8-year stint from 1999 to 2007 as an assistant under Coach Muffet McGraw. Coach Washington also enjoyed success as a player at Notre Dame and in the WNBA. At Notre Dame, she set records with 554 career assists and 307 steals, which was third all time. Her 2.7 steals per game career average is still the record at Notre Dame. And in the classroom, Coquese Washington was just as impressive, earning her undergraduate degree in just 3 years, and later earning her Juris Doctorate from Notre Dame Law School in 1997 to become a double-domer. She played 6 seasons in the WNBA and won the WNBA title with the Houston Comets in 2007. She was a key figure in helping to create the WNBA Players Association, serving as the founding president of the WNBPA from 1999 until 2001. And she led negotiations for the association's first collective bargaining agreement and helped negotiate the first free agency system in women's professional sports. Coach Washington and her husband, Raynell Brown, have 2 children, Quentin and Rahena. Please welcome to the stage Coach Muffet McGraw and Coach Coquese Washington.
So thank you both so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. We have a lot of lawyers here, but the purpose of asking you here is because at Notre Dame Law School, our mission is to train a different kind of lawyer, one that we want to go out into the world to lead. And we couldn't think of a better way to discuss leadership than by talking to 2 of the greatest leaders that we've ever produced at Notre Dame. So I'd like to ask Coach McGraw first, what are the key elements that you look for in a leader?
Well, I think leadership for me is all about the person having vision. But you can't just have a vision of where you want to go. You have to have a compelling vision that people want to join. And it was easy for me to say, I want to win a national championship, and I think you can help me, so come along. And then you have to have a plan. How are we going to get there? What are we going to do? What are we going to do every day? What are our short-term goals, our long-term goals? And here's how we can do that. And then you have to create that culture of belonging. I think that's so important that everybody feels like they're a big part of what you're doing, because that's what people really want. They want to feel that what they're doing is really important to the organization. So that's a really compelling piece. And then your culture has to be one where people feel safe, that they can ask questions, that they can disagree, that you can come out with a lot of collaboration. And I think that's a really important thing for leaders to know, that it's all about collaborating. It's not about telling people, this is where we're going, get on the bus. It's more about, what do you want to do and how can I help you get there too?
Coach Washington, what do you look for in a leader?
What she said.
Okay, let me follow up on that then. You played for Coach McGraw. You worked under Coach McGraw. What did you learn about leadership from Coach McGraw?
Coach McGraw did a fantastic job of modeling what true leadership is. Even as a player and as an assistant coach, one of the things she did was she wasn't big on do this, do that, like she just said. It was just who she was and how she operated. So for me, watching her model how to be a wife, how to be a mom, how to be a great coach all at the same time. There weren't a lot of women being able to do that. And she did it flawlessly. And it wasn't, this is how you be a mom, but it was just, Matt was at every road trip. He was at every practice. I remember, I don't know if I ever told you this, but Matt would pick Murphy up from school, and then they would come to practice. And every day, Murph would run on the court and run over to Muff and hug him. And every time, she didn't matter what we were doing, she would hug Murph, give him a kiss, and then he'd go off to the side, and him and Matt would be trying to teach him how to play basketball. And then when I had my children, I did the same thing because I remembered how she did that, and in that moment, it was about being a mom. And that's the type of leader that Muffet was for us and for me, was modeling who you want to be and modeling for us what excellence looks like as a person, as a wife, as a mother, as a coach. She always modeled it. And so when I became a head coach, that was just instinctive for me to follow in her footsteps.
So I want to mention that I'm really grateful to you, Coach Washington, because I have a son at Notre Dame who wanted to give up on basketball, but then we saw him playing every day. And then you talked him into playing for the women's practice team.
Yeah.
And now he's the second happiest person on the Notre Dame campus after me. I want to ask about Notre Dame and if there's anything special about Notre Dame or the Catholic mission that contributes to building leaders. Coach McGraw?
When I interviewed at Notre Dame, I met with Father Bill Beauchamp. He was in charge of athletics, and he said, we have one rule: don't cheat. We're going to do things the right way. We're going to follow the NCAA rules, but not just follow the letter of the law. We're going to follow the intent of the law, because our values are very important. We're talking about our values, as everybody does, right? But we're going to walk that talk. And we don't mind putting ourselves in a little bit different category. We hold a really high standard. We set the bar really high, and we generally achieve it, which is why people hate us. But those values are so important in everything that we do, and it's just such a big part of Notre Dame. Is such a special place. When you go there, there's sort of an expectation that you're going to be your best. You're going to be a role model. You're going to be somebody who, whatever you do, reflects on you. Whatever you do reflects back on us. We're all in this together, and we want to make Notre Dame the best place that it can be, and I think we've succeeded.
Coach Washington.
I remember my first year in law school and being told by, the professors and the deans, you're here to be a different type of lawyer, a different kind of lawyer. And through my 3 years there, I felt that. The way that we studied, the way that we were instructed and molded and guided to be people of impact. And through your character, be a person of impact. And that's something that even as an undergrad, I felt it, but certainly there was more of a voice put to it in law school. And that, I think, has carried all of us, me in particular, out into the world to be a person of impact. That's being a different kind of lawyer. How you do that is going to be authentic to you, but we have to be people who impact others and impact our communities in a positive way.
Absolutely. Can I ask both of you, you've both now been successful coaches for a long time. Coach McGraw, you recently stepped down, but has your leadership style changed at all over the course of your careers?
Let me speak for Coach McGraw first. She got so soft. When I played for her, and then when I went to coach for her, I was like, what happened to all the running and the yelling, and nobody gets kicked out of practice anymore? Like, what is going on?
I've done a 180 in my career, and unfortunately, Coquese was at the very beginning of it, so she got Bobby Knight. I came to Indiana. I was like, that's how coaches were back in the late 80s, early 90s. It's my way or the highway. Get on the bus. Here's where we're going. You don't like it, get off. If you're not playing well, you're on the bench. Somebody else is coming in to take your place. It wasn't about the relationships. It was all coaching. When I started coaching, basketball was 90% X's and O's. When I retired, it was 90% psychology and 10% X's and O's. So I had to learn how to deal with each generation. And each generation was different. Coquese, of course, very coachable. That whole generation was one where that's what they expected from coaches, was to tell them what to do. But as we got into 2000 and later, kids want to know why. They say they're Generation Y. I say they're Generation WHY. And I actually found that I liked that. I kind of liked when they asked questions and they talked about things, but I never asked them anything. And I learned that as a leader, you have to really, first of all, you have to establish a relationship. You have to build the trust, because you have to be honest with people and tell them what they, not what they want to hear, because that's their parents' job. You tell them what they need to hear. And the relationship completely changed. I had a better relationship with them. And, I'd ask them, okay, late game, last shot, what do you want? You tell me what you want, I'll run it. You want to clear out, you want to screen and roll, you want to, go to the block. So I would ask them, do you want the ball in the late game situation? What do you think about this? I would ask them after the game, after practice, what did you think of the 2-3 zone today? How'd you like the man-to-man? What do you think works better? How do you like doing this or that? So it was a lot more back and forth, where unfortunately Coquese never got to, because she would answer every question correctly when I would ask the questions.
I think in my time as a head coach, where I've changed is being way more intentional about learning about their off-court life, because it has such an impact, more so I think than when I played. It has more of an impact on what they're going to do on the court. And they, this generation, especially since the pandemic, they're more open about their anxiety. They're more open about their struggles. And so being aware of all the issues that they're facing helps us coach them better, and helps us move them through emerging adulthood, and as they call it, adulting. That stuff, it's hard for them. And so you got to coach them through that, as well as all the basketball stuff. So being a lot more intentional about having those conversations.
So both of your answers seem to suggest that your coaching changed because the players have changed. And I want to ask you about the circumstances that have changed. Now we're moving into this environment where name, image, and likeness has emerged as a possibility for student athletes. We've got the transfer portal. How do these circumstances of name, image, and likeness, and the transfer portal, and the current environment, we've got realignment of the conferences, how does this affect women's athletics in particular?
Well, I hate both of them. The NIL has become pay for play. There is no, you're really good at this, so I'm going to, sign you up to do this for me. This is calling a kid on the phone and saying, I'll give you $50,000 if you come to here. I'll give you $100,000 if you go to LSU or the SEC. They've been paying players for years now. They can say it out loud. So. But the real problem is women are getting the short end of the stick. They're not getting the same money. There's some. We have probably 5 or 6 that are making over $1 million in the NIL space. But generally, football is getting most of it. Yep. Men's basketball, and then women's basketball gets a small percentage. Everybody's starting these collectives on campus. They're paying people to do community service, which is, I think, totally against the philosophy of Notre Dame. Right. But they're paying people to do so many things like that, and they're paying the men more. So Title IX has got to come into it. Schools are saying, well, you guys probably can argue this better than I can, but the schools are saying, if they're promoting the collective, it has to be Title IX, it has to have equality. So the schools are saying, I'm not in charge of the collective, somebody else is doing that, which is how they're getting around the Title IX deals. And the transfer portal is equally as bad. I mean, kids have 1 foot out the door when they come in. There's nothing about, we're supposed to be teaching them life skills, right? We're supposed to be teaching them how to learn patience, wait for your opportunity. It's going to come. You have to work. This is a team. You have to sacrifice a little bit of yourself. And now it's just all about me. And I think it's ruining the game, but I'm thankful I'm out of it. So let's hear from somebody who's in it.
Yeah. We basically are in a system where we have free agency, unrestricted free agency, and no salary cap. And there's no league that would operate like that, and that's what we're facing. So the question for us as coaches is how do you work around it? And then it goes back to what Coach McGraw said about relationships, what we talked about earlier about having a different kind of program. And it goes back to recruiting and bringing in young women who that stuff is not the most important thing to them. So if they're, want to know what you got for me, how much can I earn, Rutgers I'm probably not the coach for you. And we have to just do our job of getting people whose values align with our program values. And nobody around the country, one of their core values is get rich, right? But that's how they operate. And so we have to just do a great job of finding people, young women who want to be educated, who want to be grown, who want to be stretched in all the right areas. And the spirit of NIL was go out in the marketplace. That was the spirit of it. You can go to the pizza parlor and get free pizzas if you sign some autographs. That was the spirit. The spirit of it was not to have these collectives and do pay for play. So we have to find a way to operate in this space. And for us, it comes back to what are our core values, and we won't stray away from that regardless of what the marketplace is trying to dictate.
So what's the solution? What do we do to fix this? What do you think?
Well, the NCAA totally dropped the ball. I mean, they knew this was coming 10 years ago when Alston out in California came about, and they did absolutely nothing to stop it. There were some ideas that were coming around, and they just didn't want any part of it. So they punted it to Congress, which is the most efficient organization in the world. So, I'm running out of hope. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I think some very bright people, maybe some lawyers in this room, have to come up with some solutions that even the playing field. And I don't know how that happens with, when you start looking at restraint of trade and, all those type of things. But there has to be something that comes down the pike that kind of levels the playing field, both from a Title IX standpoint and just from a competitive equity standpoint. But I think that's for people, much smarter than us coaches to figure out and put us in a place where we can be competitive across the board.
I don't know if there are people much smarter than you coaches, but along these lines of equity, I want to ask an equity question. So, last year, Brittany Griner gets arrested in Russia. And I'm assuming she's not in Russia as a tourist. She's there because she can earn more money as a women's basketball player traveling the world than she can in the United States. What do we do about the pay equity issues with regard to women in professional sports?
Well, I think it's absolutely a microcosm of what women in all career fields face. We just get paid less to do the same or equal and very often better work, right? And so that is a social, that is a systemic issue in society that we have to face. We have to recognize it, acknowledge it, and then do the work to eradicate it across the board. So I don't want to look at it just as a women's sports issue or a women's athletic issue. It's a women's rights issue that has to be addressed. And Coach McGraw has spoken about this before, and been very passionate about it. But it's a women's rights issue that we've got to tackle.
Coach McGraw, your thoughts on?
Well, they did pass the Equal Pay Act, and that hasn't helped us at all. There's so many problems. I mean, gender inequity is gender bias is real, and they have to be able to do something about it. But there's so many things that we need to change in our society before women can have the same opportunities that men have and do the same things, because we are doing the same things, as you mentioned, and you see it in interviewing, how women interview for jobs, how men interview for jobs. Men and women are very different how they approach things, and we never ask for what we deserve. Men ask for a raise 4 times as often as women, and we never ask for what we want, because That's just not how we're taught. We're raised to get along and go along and be good sports and fit in, and men are taught to be risk takers and aggressive and have ambition, and women are not allowed to do that. So we have a lot of issues that we need to fix, but a lot of it is from us, in our confidence. We need to help that grow a little bit. But men who are hiring need to understand that women interview different than men. We're not going to walk into your office and say, I want that job. We're going to wait to be asked. And that is our problem. Girls, it's not the senior prom. We got to quit waiting to be asked. We got to get out there and fight for it.
And one thing, Coach McGraw, when I was an assistant coach, that you spoke about all the time, she spoke about all the time, is opportunities. And we need more women in athletic director positions. I think there's 5 women that are athletic directors in Power 5 positions across the country. We need more women in those positions where they're going to hire, so that they can then have those conversations and they can be in a position to increase the pay disparity. So a lot of it comes back to opportunities that we have to be seen in the C-suites and the athletic directors' chairs and the conference commissioners' chairs. We need more women in those positions to make change.
I want to ask another equity question. Coach McGraw, you mentioned Title IX, and Title IX was designed to try to help level the playing field for women in various arenas, including college athletics. Recently, last week, Samantha Ponder of ESPN Sports made a comment about the question of whether transgender women should be allowed to play women's athletics. And her comment was that to allow it would undermine the spirit of Title IX to create more opportunities for women. I want to get your thoughts about what she said and the issue.
I've been really disappointed. I think there's 22 states that have already come out with laws barring transgender kids from playing sports. They're talking about doing actual physical examinations of girls. They're doing so many things that are going to chase girls out of sports. The NCAA has decided that each sport is going to make their own rules. This is what it has to be. The Olympic Committee has already made their own rules. This is what has to happen for this. I think we need to be more inclusive. These kids are going through tough enough situations. But the problem that I have is that people are trying to pretend that this is the problem with women's sports. We're trying to protect women's sports. The Congress has come out with a women's protection of sport thing that they are trying to make people believe that we're trying to help women's sports. They're not talking about gender equity. They're not talking about pay. They're not talking about how many scholarships men have and how much money they have. They're talking about keeping transgender people out of sports, and that's not helping us. So it's a really poorly titled legislation coming forward. But that's the big thing they're trying to work out. It's less than 1% of the population in sports, and it's really not a factor in women's basketball that I know of.
I haven't had much experience with it in terms of having a transgender athletes on a team or recruiting or anything like that. But I think Coach McGraw is absolutely right. This is a way of skirting around an issue to make something a women's rights issue when it's just about not being inclusive and being hateful, right? And I'm not a fan of it. And don't use women to do other stuff. Don't use women's rights to do other stuff. It's just ridiculous.
What do you see as the biggest issue confronting women's athletics now?
Well, I would say opportunities, increased opportunities across the board. And whether it's from a media standpoint, whether it's from a pay and an equity standpoint, opportunity standpoint, having the opportunities, we see it across the board when there are when you have more visibility, when you have more people that look like you, then people aspire and opportunities grow. And the more that we can create those opportunities, especially financially. So when you look at professional sports, financing the professional sports at a higher level. We're in a great opportunity right now where the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship is probably about to be bid in and of itself, and it's been, I think it's been looked at as a probably $100 million entity. And I mean, that is amazing. That's never been valued. Any women's sport has never been valued that high. So it's about looking at us holistically and accurately, and not just saying that women's sports doesn't have value. Women's sports doesn't have monetary or financial value, because it absolutely does. And now we have to give those opportunities, and we've got to fund them and finance them so that the women's sports and women's athletics continue to grow.
Best audience ever. 12 million watched the Final Four this year, which was the highest that we've ever been. But in 1972, when Title IX was passed, 90% of the coaches of women's sports were women. Right now, 40% of the coaches of women's sports are women. We have way too many men in our game. We need to get them out. And that's how you're going to see this leadership come about. When girls, as Coquese said, they can look up at you and say, there's somebody that looks like me and I can be a leader. And we just don't have enough women leaders right now. Even in the younger leagues, when your kids go out to play soccer, who's coaching the team? Somebody's dad. It's always somebody's dad coaching the team. They need to see somebody's mom out there coaching the team. They need to go to high school and play for women. They need to turn on the TV and see that there's more women out there.
I think the majority of the young women that are on our team, their high school or their club coaches were men. When they get to college, this is the first time that they're coached by women when they get to college. And it is absolutely like, it's different. You know, we have to have different conversations, and how they respond to us, it takes time, because they've never been coached by women before. So as Coach McGraw said, we have to continue to, as head coaches, we've got to, as a head coach, I feel an obligation to bring young coaches and women who have played college basketball. When we have an opportunity to hire on our staff, can we find somebody that played so that they can, when I was in college, I never thought about being a college coach until I got to college and I saw Coach McGraw, and I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this is something that maybe I could do, but I don't want to coach me, so I don't know if I really want to do this. But I never even thought about coaching, because growing up, all my coaches were men until I got to college. So again, the opportunities and having people out there, women in positions of leadership, make a difference, and it matters.
And I think people expect different things from women leaders than they do from men. They expect different things from women's coaches. Gino Auriemma can say whatever he wants, and believe me, he says some things to his team that we could never say as women. If a man says something like that, you're like, yeah, he's a jerk. You know, I mean, the guy's just like that. But if it's a woman, like, she doesn't like me. Why doesn't she like me? If a woman doesn't succeed, the next coach is going to be a man. We tried the girl thing. It didn't work. Now let's go and get a man. So we represent our entire gender all the time. Everything we do, we are representing our gender, where men are just being the coach of the team.
Yeah. Well, how do we reverse this? I mean, this is happening at lower levels.
Well, I think one of the things is men on the lower levels, they have to hire they have to hire their players that have graduated and gone through their program to be their assistant coaches, to be on their team, to groom them to take over when they leave. That's one of the most important things is, you know, we have to create new opportunities for young girls coming up.
And the athletic directors are mostly white men. I think the 11% of athletic directors are women across the board in all three divisions. And people hire people who look like them. They're comfortable with them. And I read an article in the Harvard Business Review, and it said, why do we promote incompetent men? Because men win the interview. They know the skills to win the interview. They have the hubris, they have the confidence. They go in and say, I can do this. This is where we're going to go. Women go into the interview, and we talk in we, men talk in I. We talk about, every time we get complimented, you listen to a press conference with a women's team, well, the staff really prepared us. My team got me the ball. They set good screens. Everybody did their job. You know, when you compliment a man, he says, thank you. When you compliment a woman, we say, well, we all came together and we did a good job together. And so I think we can do a little bit more to help ourselves, but generally, I think that's a problem, because I had an AD call me and say, I really want to hire a woman, and I've had 10 men already call me and say, I can do that job, I can win a national championship for you. Women, we're not picking up the phone and calling. Again, we're still waiting to be asked.
Well, we're in a room full of lawyers, so I want to ask a couple of law questions before we quit here.
I defer to Coquese.
Well, Coach McGraw, I want to start with you because I read somewhere that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a hero of yours, and I want to ask why. What are the qualities that she exhibited that you admire?
Well, when you look at her life and her life story, how she went to law school, one of, I think, 5 women in her class, and did her husband's work as well when he got sick. She was going to his classes, doing her classes, still graduated #1 in her class, and could not get a job when she got out. And I think looking at what she did for women and how she brought it to the Supreme Court for her big case, and the doors that she opened for women and to pull women up from where she came from, I think she was just a wonderful role model. And the way she did it, I never would have had the patience or the the way she presented her case. I wanted to beat somebody up, but she opened so many doors for women, and we need more women like her. There you go.
And Coach Washington, you have a Notre Dame law degree, and I want to ask, what use is it?
Have you ever tried to negotiate with a team full of teenagers?
I want to ask, how does your Notre Dame legal training help you in what you do?
Well, it definitely helps me in not so much on the court, but I've been able to have wonderful opportunities to use my law degree to impact our coaching profession and our playing profession. So, as a player in the WNBA, working to establish the Players Association and make sure that the WNBA was a career path. And so to do that, we had to organize and unionize and make sure that the working conditions that we had were real life and career long. So when the league first started, there was no year-round health insurance. There was no maternity leave. There was no 401k. There was none of that. You just got your salary. If you were on the team this week, you got paid. But if you got cut next week, that was it. You were done getting paid, and we knew that the league could not thrive and sustain itself if the working conditions for the players were such that it was a side gig. So sitting in a room across from David Stern and Adam Silver and Val Ackerman and literally haggling over hundreds of dollars and haggling over what our working conditions were, certainly my background as a lawyer came into play in those instances. And then also working and serving on our Coaches Association, the WBCA, and Coach McGraw, kind of showed me the way and modeled that again, because she did a lot of work with our Coaches Association. So being in the room when we start talking about, what is the valuation of our championship, and how can we as coaches work together to make the NCAA women's basketball continue to grow the game. Certainly a lot of what I've learned as a Notre Dame lawyer comes into play in those respects. But mostly I use my law degree at home with teenagers. That's the most valuable.
Would you be willing to take a few questions from the audience? Anyone have questions?
This question's for Coach McGraw. Coach, What was it like? And by it, I mean the practices before, the night before, in the locker room, the moments before a game against UConn and that coach from Stores, Connecticut.
I loved playing UConn. That was one of my favorite games. I loved going there and playing. The crowd was really into the game. And those were games that I thought were fun. To me, the stress in basketball coaching is when you're supposed to win, right? You're going to beat this team by 30. Those are the stressful games for me. The games against Connecticut, they were generally rated ahead of us. So they were a game where we had nothing to lose. You know, we're going in, we're going to have some fun. And I think that that was probably, I mean, the team was always up for it. Scouting reports, you know, everybody was on it. There was just precision at practice. Everything was done right down to the last detail. We had everything we needed to do. And then we went out and kind of just had some fun when we won.
Hi, Chris Stewart here. So I have a question. You kind of talked a little bit, Coach Washington, about you know, the value of the WNBA now and it being a standalone entity and things like it. How do we like continue to grow the game? Like, you know, I grew up in a household of women's basketball and everyone playing and loving it and still watching it all the time. And some of my best friends are from the women's basketball team. But how do we keep growing that and making sure that's a viable path for hopefully when, you know, if we have a daughter that she can have a chance to do that?
I think one of the most important things that we can do is actually support it. You know, that means I think to be a league pass for the WNBA, it's $15 for the summer. You know, support the league, buy the league pass, go to games, attend games, be a season ticket holder. We don't have enough deep support of our game. You know, we will go to the Final Four, we'll go to the big games, but we need, and especially women, we need us to support the game. And it's, to me, it's not that complex, but it's hard to do that. So, you know, everybody has to make a choice, but if we want the game to continue to grow, if we want the game to be here another 25 years from now, we have to support it now.
I think Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, is doing a fabulous job. She raised $75 million. She's starting to get charter flights. We treat them better in college than they do in the WNBA. I mean, we charter everywhere. We take good care of them. So I think she's really on track to do some good things. Attendance is up. I think that's really important. And I think you're starting to see a lot of NBA guys at the games. And I think that really helps the credibility. And there's, you know, some celebrities coming to games now. So I think that's really helping. But attendance has really been good around the league. Even the Indiana Fever sold out their first game. They used to get hundreds of people. So now they're doing much better.
I wonder what your favorite Notre Dame moment was.
That was easy for me. 2001. 2001, we win the national championship in St. Louis, and we fly back that night. Yep. And we're coming back, and we land at the airport, and I think it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, so we get a police escort, because you all know how busy South Bend is at 2 a.m. And then we pull up Notre Dame Avenue, and there was like 3,000 people out on the quad. And it was, I will never forget that moment. That was it for me.
That was the same. That was my favorite Notre Dame moment. Absolutely. That can't get that picture out of my head. Driving down Notre Dame Avenue with the crowd. It was, and the dome was lit up in the
number one sign.
Number one sign. Yeah, that was special.
Well, this is one of my favorite Notre Dame moments, and I want to take a moment to thank you both for joining us tonight.